With practice and qualifying in the books, Brian and I are in to talk all things Grant Park 165 as Chicago street race number 2 gets started on Sunday. We'll tell you the players that need to be in your lineup, the ones that should be on the sidelines, and is there any value with the betting board this week? All of that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, it is a late Saturday night here on the West Coast, but we wanted to make sure we got the episode in. We're going to talk DFS. We're going to talk the outright betting board. We're going to try and convince ourselves that it's not an absolute fade and run away from and see if we can build some lineups and find some winners and all that good stuff. I guess we saw practice, we saw qualifying. Like, what was your big takeaway? You know, obviously sometimes we want to impact more or less of what we saw in practice, and as qualifying is more important, times it means nothing. I guess as you saw what you saw today, and we're recording this Saturday, and then as for Sunday's race, like how are you playing the information that you received into what you think may happen on Sunday?
Well, let me start by saying that I got to eat crow on this, and that there is a new sheriff in town on road course / street courses, because forgetting the fact that Shane Van Gisbergen basically ran away with the Xfinity race, all but during the time that he pit and he had to start from, he was back in the pack and still made his way through. During practice and qualifying, it was still very clear. Like, this guy is on another level in terms of his skill level on this track type. And when you have the sport's number one driver and quite possibly the best non-European race car driver in Kyle Larson saying that he has a lot to learn from SVG and, just reaping his praises, it's clear. Like, Shane Van Gisbergen is just on another level from the rest of the Cup Series and anybody else here in North America and NASCAR. And to be able to do this in a Colleague car, which, me, a lot of other people, I think even you were kind of, in cahoots here in saying that he was in lesser equipment than the rest of these guys, and he's still able to turn the laps that he does. And if you look at the betting board now that have been released post practice and qualifying, I can personally say I've never seen a Cup driver with this price on an outright at any race at any time in my life of betting the sport, which is very short amount of time. But even if this is almost like a football team being minus 1,500 on a money line when they're facing 4 teams that same weekend. Like, This is just absurd. But so that's my big takeaway is it's SVG and the rest of the field. Like, I don't think you can look at it any other way. I got to eat crow. I said the number was too short earlier in the week.
Turns out it can get shorter.
Like I made the right decision, just because what if he sucked? I can't sit here in hindsight and say, oh, I should have bet the 5-1 number, but clearly he's got it. If you don't have any Van Gisbergen exposure, good luck finding any value on those numbers now. I think you're just going to have to eat it and watch him perform on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, I was working on the newsletter as I was getting ready to record this podcast. By the way, aoppodcast.substack.com. Once again, aoppodcast.substack.com. Link is in the description. Brian and I put out DraftKings thoughts, extra bets, links to the videos, all the kinds of good stuff. Trying to add some, nuggets that we find throughout the week. Anything cool that might help you guys, when you're betting the race, when you're building lineups, all that good stuff. Finding bets for the draft for the card has been interesting. Trying to convince myself that there's potential. This is a really good week to probably just sit back, enjoy the race, have fun just watching, and get ready to bet again next week, because it's pretty gross. Obviously, we'll be playing some DraftKings this week. It might be a good just play DraftKings, build a bunch of lineups. You know, you want to get some SVG exposure in your life.
Yeah.
That might be the way to do it. So Brian, let me bring up DraftKings.com and we can look at lineups and we can talk about the pricing and how we want to approach it. So let me share that. Kyle Larson starting on the pole, 10-5. Christopher Bell starting 7th, 10-2. SVG starting 5th at an even 10K. And given the outright price, it's really easy to consider SVG. You can also, go to the Larson route and I think have a very reasonable shot at winning. Obviously, we saw SVG win the Xfinity race, but Kyle Larson is still Kyle Larson at the end of the day. And, if you told me he won the race and was the driver you needed to have, I wouldn't bat an eye at it for sure. Is it really just SVG and log out for you, or do you have any interest in either Larson or Bell?
So that's funny you say that. I don't think you're going to be able to play DraftKings and not have Shane Van Gisbergen in your lineup. Kyle Larson, on the other hand, starting from the pole, knowing how aggressive he can be, and you have a bunch of guys that are behind him that are racing either for their first win or they're below Larson in the standings, playoff standings, have at it. I think there's some risk there, but Van Gisbergen has proven the ability to stay on track and be safe. Look, I don't mind doing that. That said, I don't think there was anybody on track last year in the Chicago street race that could have matched Christopher Bell's pace had he not gotten wrecked. That includes Shane Van Gisbergen, because at no point in the day, while Christopher Bell was running clean, was SVG able to pass Christopher Bell. I know he didn't look great in practice today, but the Toyotas in general, they all kind of were spattered throughout the field in practice and then showed up in qualifying. And Christopher Bell, as we've seen over the last month or so, has been the fastest car on track on the most consistent basis. He's starting 7th. He's proven before that he can be really good on road courses. He offers the best placement potential here. The fact that he has 3 wins on the season, I think is very important to consider at a race like this, where it's going to be a lot of risk reward. And with him having that in the bank already, he doesn't have to worry about, I spun out because I got a little bit I went too hard into that corner racing for the win. So obviously he's a little checkers or wreckers, but at the same time, he offers the potential for a win. And, he's going to be pretty low rostered, I would think, with being sandwiched between Kyle Larson and Shane Van Gisbergen, who put on an absolute show during the Xfinity race and were probably the best 2 overall cars in practice for a Cup Series as well.
Yeah. I'm looking at iFantasy Races speed rankings since 2023. Bell's 5th behind the Dinger, Ty Gibbs, SVG, and Tyler Reddick is number 1. Interesting group. I'm also looking at 5 lap average from practice. It's even more interesting as Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin, John Hunter Nemechek, Kyle Larson, and Michael McDowell are your top 5. So
I will say, so I was like in the process of trying to tweet this while practice was going on, but I just couldn't keep up with it. There were times during the practice session that you would notice, if you were watching the raw feed, somebody would throw down an 89.2 lap or an 89.4 lap, and then their next lap was 90.8. And that had to have been done because of traffic. And so I don't think you can take a lot away from the 5 lap averages or 10 lap averages, because you don't know where on track these guys were, who they were running into in traffic and all that stuff. So I'm not reading too much into that. I definitely think when they were on track running the qualifying laps, you got to see who had top end speed, who felt comfortable in their car. And, it's clear, like a guy like Christopher Bell, I'm comfortable having, obviously his checkers or wreckers. And look, I'm going to say it again. I was completely wrong about Van Gisbergen. He's going to be extremely strong on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's just how many lineups are you going to get in and what type of contest are you in that you're going to need to pivot off of him or potentially get a little bit different in order to actually win.
Yeah, in cash, he's going to be
Oh yeah.
basically unfadable.
I was going to say he should be 100% rostered in cash lineups.
In tournaments, if you want to get wacky and fade
Yeah.
him, I think that's the way to do it. And honestly, I don't hate starting in the 9K range and building from there. I think if you really want to be unique and eliminate 70%, 60% of the field, I think you can absolutely do that in some tournaments by skipping that range. Now, where you start, that's a whole nother animal. Let's talk about that range because I love Tyler Reddick starting fourth. He has been the best driver on road courses. His finishes have been left a little bit to be desired, as he loves to bridesmaid and not bride. But I think he is an incredibly compelling option. I think he's starting near the front. If he can, he's in front of SVG already. If he can get to the front quickly, he can lead some laps. He can be the guy you need and be really, really important. Beyond there is where you start to get interesting. Chase Elliott starting 18th, William Byron starting 27th, Martin Truex starting 24th, and AJ Allmendinger starting 37th. 4 extremely compelling options who can move forward, who can be really, really important. You're going to have to spend up, and they're all kind of in a similar range. So I think figuring out the targets probably from that range is going to be key. But I guess for you, beyond Reddick, let's talk the 4 guys kind of starting further back, moving forward. Chase, Byron, Truex, and the Dinger, the former road course ringer before SVG came stateside. I guess who's the most compelling? Do you have interest in any or all of them? Where are you at with those 4 drivers?
All right, so I think first we have to make note of William Byron is one of the handful of drivers that will be having to go to the rear at the start of the race due to unapproved adjustments or whatever repairs they had to make because there was something with his steering in the car they had to replace after the qualifying. So Byron will be starting at the back. So obviously you're losing all those placements right off the bat for him. So I wouldn't say he's a complete fade in DFS, but he's definitely a lot scarier. Chase Elliott looked okay. He wasn't anything to write home about. And, you know, we haven't seen the same Elliott that we did in the past since the next gen car at road courses. And so I'm not as optimistic that he's going to run through the field and wind up running 5th at this track. I would much rather save a little bit of money and go to Martin Truex Jr. starting 24th, who does have the pedigree of somebody who can just run his own race and stay in it. And the fact that he doesn't have a win, and maybe he has this mentality now where, you know what? I don't give a flying F because I'm retiring at the end of this season. So I'm going all out for this victory. And maybe we see a little bit of more aggression out of the 19 car. Allmendinger, I have no effing idea why they threw down 1 lap during the whatever qualifying time that they had, and they parked it. So I don't know if there's something wrong with the car, if he was just so upset with the car, or what happened there. But we got no explanation during the broadcast. I haven't found anything on socials. I'm sitting on a minus 140 Allmendinger top 10 bet and Allmendinger matchup. Like I'm not betting him. I don't even know what to do with him. And he's probably going to be extremely rostered because of his history on road courses.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I'm into Dinger. He's going to be one of my guys. I think he is. I get it. Like, it's weird. It's a weird situation, especially because SVG's in the other colleague car, and he was able to get it to go 5th. So I don't know if they just found something and they didn't want to mess with it. I don't know what the deal is, or if they're just like, you know what, we're not going to win, so let's start as far back and see how far forward we can get. I don't. It was real weird. It was real weird. That being said, if you're going to be, especially in cash, so much of the field is going to be on him that if you get him wrong and he's actually good, you're screwed. Now, in tournaments, if you want to fade him because a lot of people are going to be on him It's an easy way to get rid of somebody, and if you want to be a little different, I don't hate it, but I definitely will have dinger exposure. It's just I don't know, starting 37th, even if he finishes 14th, like you're loving life, like that's amazing. And he could do some cool stuff. He can stay out, try and get some um, luck box his way into some track position, and then once he's there, he's good. And it was a little weird. You watched a lot of the Xfinity race. Did he look good in the Xfinity race? Because he was basically started where he finished where he started. So, like, was he good, or was he just kind of a non-factor in the Xfinity race and finished where he started?
Yeah, I mean, he was all right. He took advantage of a pit strategy early in the race, which got him the track position, and he just kind of maintained from
Yeah.
that point until he actually wrecked out while running third. He definitely didn't have the pace to keep up with the top cars in the race, which were the 19 Van Gisbergen and Kyle Larson. Had it just been based off of speed, he had no business running up there with those guys, which could be an equipment thing, could just be that, the young guns are improving,
Yeah.
and so he looked all right. I'm just more so concerned with the fact that when you add in how hefty a price you're basically paying for Allmendinger at 9K, added to the roster percentage that he's going to hold, if he's just a shitbox this week and he finishes 30th, you just paid $9,000 for a guy that gets you a 30th place finish and you're going to get 15 points from. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not really interested to that, and I don't see a car that could drive up through the field and potentially get a decent at a top 10 without some shenanigans happening, and I don't want to play for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be 35% owned, and it's an easy, if you want to pivot off him to Truex, to Byron, hell, even to Elliott, you're going to save yourself some ownership. You're going to be obviously starting a little farther forward, but maybe that ends up being kind of what you need to really, ascend into that top 10 and contend for maybe not a win, but like a strong finish and be really, really valuable on DraftKings. Like I said, I will have some dinger exposure. I'm going to force Brian to have him in at least one lineup, but
I'm okay with
um,
it, like a small percentage of your, like if you're doing like a
yeah,
max entry, I don't think he's somebody that you should match whatever the roster percentage is, because I
yeah.
do think there's a lot of risk involved with him this weekend.
Yeah, and I think to your point, like if you have more of a chalky build and you want him to be out as your kind of contrarian piece. There's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. I get it, but if you're already contrarian elsewhere and you want to use him, I totally makes sense. Yeah, I think Byron starting 27th, even if he's going farther back, it's negligible. I think it'll be fine. I'm with you on Truex. He's been strong on road courses. I bet both Byron and Truex outright. Their numbers have gotten significantly longer
Thanks,
since we made those bets.
SVG.
So that's something. Let's talk 8K. Christopher Buescher starting 16th. Michael McDowell looked awesome starting third, 8,600. Tyrone Gibbs looked awesome, 8,400. Chastain, like, weirdly adjusted. I think he was not very good in practice. Obviously qualified fine. His outright is skyrocketed. Suarez starting in the top 10, and Denny Hamlin. Is there any world where if you want to be a little bit different, you're skipping the 10K, you're coming down here, maybe you grab a Byron Truex, a Dinger Truex, however you want to play it, and then coming down for either McDowell or Gibbs as your dominator?
Absa bleeping Luli. Tyrone Gibbs is probably my favorite driver on this slate. He was right up there in terms of lap averages, who he, even considering he had those weird instances where his lap time would jump from 88 point something to 90 whatever. Like his 5-lap average and 10-lap averages were really damn good. He was consistently throwing down the fastest laps in Group B. He was the only car in Group B from what I was watching that looked like could compete with both Kyle Larson and SVG, which was proven during qualifying, which F that Kyle Larson, by the way. He cost me my Tyrone Gibbs 12-1 pole ticket by 100th of a second. That son of a bitch. But I think Gibbs is the perfect contrarian play for somebody who's only entering a couple of lineups, but they want to try to win big, because I think Gibbs is one of the few guys that can hang up front with them. And with him not having a win on the season, like he's going to do everything in his power to maintain track position up there and just ride with them. So when Larson and when SVG pit, like if he's running third, he has no reason to get off cycle with them, because he's going to want to stay up front with those guys. And so I think he's going to be there at the end and possibly even be the guy that makes the a-hole move and moves somebody to win the race. And I want to be involved in that when that happens.
Well, and he ran with those guys today at Xfinity.
Yeah, exactly.
He got second between SVG and Larson, so he's not afraid to get in there and mix it up.
No.
Maybe it doesn't work out, but yeah, I'm with you. Like he is fun,
And you're saving a ton of salary.
Yeah, McDriver looked good too. Like I don't hate going there.
And McDowell too, in the same, even more so than Tyrone Gibbs. He needs a victory to get into the playoffs, because they're reaching the witching hour for him, for his team, before FRM decides and Ford completely shuts him out of any like race preparation with him transitioning from a Ford to a Chevy car. There's already, where we heard it last week at Nashville, that Ford has already started to shut McDowell out of Ford meetings because they don't want to share their proprietary information, which to me is complete bullshit. Like, let the guy finish out the season, for gosh sakes.
Yeah. He's gonna run to another manufacturer and share your details with. It's so stupid.
Yeah. It's wild to me that actually occurs.
Yeah, and if there is a place where we could see him actually getting a win, road course would be number one on the list. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think last week or 2 weeks ago at New Hampshire, perfect example as to why McDowell is a great contrarian play, because he's unafraid to send it and wreck himself and everybody else.
Yeah. R.I.P. Ryan Blaney. Yeah, and maybe that's why he's terrifying, because if he's running second, he's going to make a dumb move to try and get to the front, and may end up killing your lineup. But
during a contest, you're going to want to have a little exposure to him. And for what it's worth, I think he has the second best paint scheme this weekend. That Chicago White Sox scheme is clean.
Yeah. Do you have any interest in Chastain, Suarez, or Hamlin as we round out the 8K range?
Well, so Chastain said after the qualifying session that they had to make a bunch of changes from the practice setup, which clearly helped, but that's a little worrisome that they missed it by that much coming into the race weekend. And Suarez was impressive. I don't really know what other people are looking at or why he wouldn't be priced a little bit shorter. Suarez is known as a road course guy, and we've seen it before with Trackhouse. I mean, shit, Van Gisbergen won last year, and that's what everybody talked about, is that Trackhouse brings that special chassis, whatever the hell it is, and we don't know which one of them got it. Probably Chastain, because he doesn't have a win, but Suarez still looked better. And sitting on the one win, like, he's a little safer, so he can get a little more aggressive to win the race. And this is probably his best opportunity outside of a super speedway to get another race on the season as well. So I don't hate playing a little bit of him either if you're playing a bunch of lineups.
Yeah, and honestly, like, if you want a corollary, like, he won Sonoma, which has a very much like climb and go down and around, a little more. It's not so, it's a little more closely resembling what we may see this week. So
yeah,
I don't think it's crazy. I do have a matchup on him, but when I'm looking at his outright price and I see like a 40, like, maybe
I mean, obviously, Van Gisbergen winning the Xfinity race and looking like he did in practice and qualifying helped float a lot of these numbers. So I mean,
yeah, and we'll talk about how we want to approach the betting card.
Yeah, we'll hit on that.
There's certainly a couple directions you can go. Yeah, I don't hate going to the Trackhouse guys. Like, obviously, both are scary, and Trackhouse has been kind of a mess. So it's like, but it also, they make for some interesting decisions. Let's talk 7K. Ryan Blaney 17, Kyle Busch 19, Logano 32nd, Austin Cindric 21st, Alex Bowman 8th, Chase Briscoe 22nd, and Brad K top 10 on the starting grid. A bunch of names there. Not, it's kind of these guys are usually good, but road courses really aren't their thing outside of Kyle Busch. Austin Cindric at the end of the day, you don't know, what to do with him. I guess, do you have any interest in any of these guys as kind of cheaper options that could help make lineups work?
Yeah, so before we move on to this, I did forget to mention that Chris Buescher is also going to be going to the back because he broke I think it was a right rear toe link, like right at the very end of his qualifying session.
Phenomenal.
So there's that. And then amongst this group, Brad Keselowski, who actually qualified 10th, because during his qualifying session, he actually backed it up into the wall. He's also, I believe, having to go to the back because of repairs. So Brad K, who surprisingly was the second, at one point he was the second fastest car in Group A, which had me completely in a tizzy, thinking that old man Brad was able to get that fast here. He's got to start to the back. I have zero interest in him. He's losing 30 placements right off the bat here. And look, Joey Logano sucks, and he was terrible in practice, terrible in qualifying. He was not good during the Xfinity race, but because of all the crap that happened, he wound up taking home a top 10 there. He's starting 32nd. If anybody from this group is going to somehow work their way to the front with limited ownership, I got to think it's the 22. I'm not excited about him whatsoever, but I would rather play Logano starting 32nd at $7,600 than pay up for Allmendinger, who's starting 5 spots behind him at $9K.
Yeah, and to be honest, I might go to Blaney over Logano. I know you're obviously giving up a lot of positions to do that, but Blaney's been sneaky solid at road courses. Obviously, you spend a little bit more, but I think the projection is pretty similar. I think you get a lot less ownership, but I honestly don't hate both of them. I think they could both make some sense as you're rounding out lineups. Neither of them are crazy sexy, but if you told me, oh, we're got 5 to go and Logano's stayed out and got a lucky caution, now he's 7th in the pecking order. Ryan Blaney's been slowly and steadily climbing all day, and now he's running 6th. And maybe, I don't think either of them really win, but if you told me one of them snuck out a top 5, I think they both make some sense. And I know, it makes me throw up a little bit, but Kyle Busch is kind of the same. He's disgusting, but my God, if there's any place for him to grab, I mean, we saw it Sonoma, he was running top 5 until he wrecked himself, but
don't start that argument again.
Yeah, I'm not doing it, but yeah, I think all 3 of those names are interesting enough where I could see myself getting there.
Yeah, and I think we'd be missing out here if we don't even mention Alex Bowman, who I had sent a tweet out right after the end of their session ended, that Bowman was increasingly getting faster as he got to the end of his practice session. And in fact, his last lap during practice was his fastest lap. And it was his 12th lap of the session. And so he basically stayed out the entire time. So it's clear that they like their car there with the 48 team. And of the HMS guys, outside of Kyle Larson, I think Alex Bowman is the most secure in where he's in his comfortable level going into the race. And so, it's $7,300. If you want to get different, I think Bowman will probably not be taking on much roster percentage because he's kind of been the forgotten man from that team this year. And he is starting a little bit further towards the front than you would probably like from somebody of his caliber at this time. But you're saving a lot of salary. He's got a pretty fast car. He looked good in practice. And I mean, if he can just maintain track position and maybe make up some spots on pit road, you're looking at a guy who could potentially grab a top 5 and maybe throw in a couple of fastest laps. If that's even possible, if the quadruplet of Larson, SVG, Gibbs, and Reddick allow anybody else to do fastest laps. But yeah, I think Bowman's a good little play there.
Yeah, and like the top 10 price at sportsbooks reflects him being expected to kind of stay where he is. And like you said, maybe he moves forward, maybe he grabs the top 5, maybe he has a strong day. And, if he gains a little bit of Larson magic, maybe he has a really good day. Who knows? But I don't hate that shout out. He's been pretty decent at road courses too. He was 5th at Coda in speed rankings in 23. He was 8th here in 23. He was 6th at Indy Road. He stunk at the Glen, but then he was 10th at the Roval, 7th at Coda, and then 16th at Sonoma. So he's been pretty rock solid at road courses.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to blow you away. He's not going to be insanely fast, but I think he is solid, and I think he will go overlooked because of where he's starting and his price. Let's talk 6K because it starts to get really gross really fast.
Oh, no.
Joey Hand, Todd Gilliland, Justin Haley, Carson Hocevar, Eric Jones, Zane Smith, Noah Gregson, Bubba Wallace, Corey LaJoie, and Austin Hill round out this. Or wait, no, Austin Hill is 5th. So Josh Berry's the last name. If we want to double tap the Van Gisbergen and Larson, if we want to get involved at the top, we're gonna have to come down here. Is there anyone you can close your eyes and convince yourself isn't the end of the world to find a home in your lineup?
If you're making an all-out YOLO lineup, Bubba Wallace starting 6th at $6,200 has to be at the forefront of that.
Start
team.
Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, or Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace.
Look. Okay, so watching the raw feed during their practice session, Bubba was in the same session as his teammate Tyler Reddick. You know who was better that entire session? Bubba Wallace.
Yeah,
he was better than the sport's best road course racer in the next gen car, and it's something we've talked about with Bubba over the last year plus or so. He continues to improve on tracks that people had previously thought he was terrible at. And what's really interesting is that he was upset at his car and his performance during qualifying, and the fact he put it 6th.
Yeah.
I'm
so mad. We talked about him prior to the week and adding him as a top 10. We're like, no, that's probably too aggressive, but it looks like found money at this point. So I guess we missed our bucket there, but yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to get there just because.
That's why it's called the YOLO lineup.
Yeah, no, you can definitely, if you need to pivot off him and go down here and you need a really dominator because you want to stack up the other guys, then I get it. Yeah, I can, I see your Bubba Wallace and I say, hold my beer and pencil in some Corey LaJoie exposure. I wrote him up for the newsletter. Little quick preview there. He's kind of interesting. He was good here. He moved forward last year. He was good at Sonoma. I know he's Corey LaJoie and he's terrifying. And there's, I call him gas station sushi. You're really playing with fire, and you could be in the bathroom for half the race, but you could also find a guy who flirts with the top 10 and doesn't at 60. What is he? 6,100. I think you could do worse.
Yeah, look.
I get it. It makes you want to throw up, but also it doesn't sound too bad.
The problem with a guy like Corey LaJoie is I think he presents the same risk, probably a little bit more than a Bubba Wallace because he's not in as good of equipment, but he has a much lower ceiling. And I think you got to think too, like LaJoy is starting around our best buds, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott. Like I can't envision people getting out of that little area clean.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It would take a lot for me to put LaJoy into a lineup.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has he has a lower ceiling and probably a lower floor, but I also think he's pretty rock solid and he's shown the ability. I know he's Corey LaJoy and he's terrifying, but like I don't know.
And just not to put a damper on your Corey LaJoy excitement, reading a tweet from Bob Pockrass
Is he
about
going to the
7
back?
hours ago while I was partying. Ryan Blaney to the rear after replacing a left rear toe link and control arm and completing the list of drivers to the rear for Cup. Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, Josh Berry, who's already starting in the rear, by the way, William Byron, Eric Jones, apparently, and Corey LaJoy, and then Harrison Burton. So it is a whole gaggle of drivers sent to the back because of issues, and LaJoy spun and wrecked. I believe it was at the end of.
All right, so let's think about this. With all the gaggle of drivers going to the back, someone is getting pushed up automatically.
Yeah.
Who is it, and can they hold that position?
Oh, so apparently it's not Busher. So apparently Busher is not going to the back. So let me correct what I said a little bit earlier. So he was from 18th, so he's going to be moving up to 16th. Because Blaney, I think, was in front of him. Yeah. Yeah, Blaney was immediately in front of Busher. Or no, Busher was in front of him. Huh. So the two highest guys going to the back are Blaney and Keselowski. So everybody that's starting like 18th and back is essentially moving up 2 spots.
Everybody who's starting 18th and back is moving up 2 spots.
Yeah, because
So
both the number
no,
10 and number 17 starting positions are going to the rear.
Noah Gragson, Todd
I
Gilliland.
don't hate Noah. I mean, honestly, we've been doing this every single week. We've become a Gilly Gang pod, and if we like Michael McDowell, I think Gilliland, who is now starting to receive the vast majority of Front Row Motorsports assets and just research information, I think he could be in play. And then, of course, Justin Haley, who competed with SVG last year at the end for the win, starting 23rd, essentially starting 21st.
How many people are going to go to Justin Haley just because he led so many laps last year on a race that was really weird and
Yeah, a whole bunch, and that's quite honestly, that's why I didn't write him up in the newsletter, just because he's probably going to be 30% owned, and that's not really a point that I want to get to on a Justin Haley who's starting mid pack already.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this weekend is going to be a wild race. I really don't think it's a race to get too heavily involved in, and I'm actually kind of starting to look at this as a super speedway style in terms of there's so much uncertainty still that I can't get too heavily invested. I mean, as we transition to the 5K here, freaking John Hunter Nemechek had the fastest 5-lap average at one point in practice. And then he qualifies 12th, which thank God he beat Ricky Stenhouse Jr. That's like one of the easiest bets I've ever made in qualifying. But it's like, do you think that the 42 is going to stay up there all day? Hell no.
No. I kind of like Ryan Preece, but I don't know. That whole camp is weird, and it just, I don't know, concerns me. Stenhouse, like, maybe. I just like, I don't know. We're gonna have to dip down here at some point, and it just everything makes.
Why don't you, if that's the point, why don't we just get the Kaz man starting 40th, who is now essentially starting 33rd because of all the guys going to the back.
Yeah, but I feel like he'll be 40th within 3 seconds of the race starting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's see here. Is there any? I mean, Austin Dillon.
Not within starting 15th. Like that's where you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with these guys because it's almost a week where you want to front load your roster, but you can't because the guys at the back half just suck.
All right. Well, let's build 3 lineups and see what we can do.
All right.
Do we start with SVG?
Yeah, let's just get this out of the way here.
Where
Just
do
go
you want to
Larson.
go?
Let's just go Larson and see if we can build something around
God.
this.
The back end is disgusting. We don't like any of the drivers. Let's start Kyle Larson SVG.
Hey, we gotta force. We have to force it here. I don't know. Part of me wants to get to Austin Hill, who's starting 34th, just because he's one of there's like 7 or 8 drivers that are doing both. And I definitely think that's going to help these guys. And because he's 5,800, like, can he potentially get a top 25?
Maybe.
Or would you rather pay down and get Ryan Preece? Or shit, Daniel Hemrick, starting 35th. He's disgusting, and everybody made fun of him for getting the full-time Cup ride, but he's somehow navigated and gotten a few good results just by staying clean.
But yeah. Ugh.
That's never exciting.
I think I want Ryan Preece.
All right, let's do Preece.
5,600.
That's so gross.
But we're already looking good.
We're definitely gonna have to get like one more salary saver though.
I really want to put Corey LaJoy in, but pushing him back is making me uneasy. Zane Train. Gilly Gang.
I like Gilliland.
Gilliland's, I mean, he is 6,800.
And I don't think he's going to be highly rostered either.
I don't know. He's one of those guys that I think gets, just because he's the Gilly Gang nickname and like he's actually not been horrendous. I could see him getting a little more interest than he probably should. Slogano. I don't know if we want to go too crazy with back markers either, though. So it's like,
yeah, because that.
Suarez.
Okay, interesting debate. Would you rather save $100 or get Ross Chastain?
I'd rather save $100 and get Denny Hamlin.
Okay, then let's do that because you're still then in great shape to add another.
Yeah, and then we're at the dinger.
I mean, I don't hate Dinger. I feel like he's a safe play, but
I feel like in a lineup where we started SVG and Larson and we have Preece, Gill, and Hamlin. Although, like, but Dinger is one of the beneficiaries, right? Like, he's going to move forward with all these guys going behind him.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good point. So
he's
going to
already
be moving up like 7 spots. So he's technically starting 30th.
Yeah. Welcome to the lineup.
Oh man.
Gross.
Look, I'll be happy because I'm sitting on a bad top 10 number on Dinger. So
yeah, but like even his new top 10 number is not.
No, it's not horrendous.
It's not that appealing. I'm not like, oh baby, give it to me. All right. So the Bell is somebody that I would willing to get to. I can also do SVG. I do want to build one lineup where we skip kind of this range and we start with the Gibbs,
Let's do the YOLO.
Truex, Chase.
What about Bubba?
Good Bubba. Chase.
I don't hate that.
Dinger. Busher.
Oh man.
Do you like Elliott over Busher? Yeah, I think we have to go Chase. I'm gonna force it. We can do both of them probably.
Oh yeah. No, definitely.
So now we got to figure out how gross we want to get because we could do like we could do a Logano and a Blaney. We could do, if we want to go way down, like for example, if we just putting someone in for a placeholder, that gets us up to 10K. So if we want to go down to like the 6K range, if we want to do 2.7s.
Okay. So obviously both of us are simpatico when it comes to either Christopher Bell or Tyler Reddick, right? We both think they're going to be strong.
Yeah.
So if we plug one of them in, and then we could just see what we could fit.
Do you want like a Bell, Zane Smith? Do you prefer?
I mean, you're not really getting much different if you put in Reddick, though. Like, look, I love Tyler Reddick, and I bet him outright. I actually did add the outright prior to practice and qualifying. I was afraid the number was going to get too short. Boy, did I miss on that freaking SVG, that bastard.
Yeah, but like he went from what, like 6.5 to like 8.
Yeah,
like,
he's 8.
It's fine.
Yeah, or he was 7 in other places, down to 8. So you're not
I
losing.
mean, I wrote up Reddick as my favorite play. So I think we should do, if we're gonna skip the elite guys, I think we do the 23-11 thing with Gibbs and Truex, and then we had Chase, and then we just put in either Gillen, Haley, Zane Smith.
Well, I mean, when you look at this lineup, if you were to tell me that one of these 5 guys that are currently there won the race, I'm not going to be that surprised. I mean, Bubba Wallace obviously would be surprising, but
Bubba Wallace would be a distant 5th. But like, if you told me the top 6 were including Larson, SVG, Gibbs, Truex, Chase, and Reddick, I think it all makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think this is a great lineup, and you just got to find a guy who's not going to kill you at the bottom half. So is that a Haley or a Gilliland?
I think had LaJoy not been thrown to the back, I would have been fine going there. But I think Gilliland makes sense for this lineup.
All right, let's do it. Look at that beauty.
It feels too good for as gross as this race is. So it's dead. All right, NASCAR. One more.
All right, you tee it off.
All right. We did a SVG Larson, and we did one without both of them. Should we do
Christopher Bell? He's the only guy in the 10K range that we don't have.
Yeah. Now I was thinking maybe Larson, but now I kind of want to do Reddick again. Reddick or Larson? Who do you want?
I was gonna say go down to McDowell.
Okay. I mean, that's disgusting, but okay.
He's gonna be uber aggressive.
Yeah, but like that sounds terrifying for DraftKings.
All right. Let's pivot then and go.
No, I mean it's fine. Let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna put in the Dinger.
Okay.
We have a back marker. He's moving forward. How gross do we want to get? Do you want to do Logano? Do you want to do Blaney? Do you want to do both?
I think I feel more comfortable with Logano because of where he's starting. And also too, Blaney is the guy that's going to the back. It wasn't Busher. It's Blaney.
Oh yeah, never mind.
Yeah, so Logano's the guy, and then
it's not like it's a mile and a half where they can move pretty quickly. Like the road courses is going to be hard to pass on. So
yeah, and Somebody that has kind of piqued my interest this week because of how shitty they qualified, which is completely contradictory to the way you would think, is Josh Berry. Because he's starting further back in the pack, like I don't think he's a 36th place car anywhere we run at this point in the season.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at this point we need to get. I mean, do you have any interest in Ross Chastain 8,200 starting in mid pack? Can he actually win this thing? Do we want to just do Suarez and not like? Is he more fun, or should we just go down to Hamlin? I think one of
Well,
these three is the name.
yeah, and I think too, like because there's only 75 scheduled laps for this thing, dominator points are going to be a lot less. So you need more placements and you need guys that can potentially get good finishes. And either Suarez or Chastain specifically, they're going to do everything in their power to get track position for the end and for him to compete for the race win, which is what we saw last week in Nashville. Like he was not a top 2 car the entire race until they found their way up front and he was battling it out with Denny Hamlin. So not that I think Chastain can win the race or Suarez is going to compete up front, but if drivers are going to make weird calls to get that type of track position, I think both of these two fit that mold very, very clearly.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Let's see here. It's interesting. Looking at a couple different options. One of them has Suarez more rostered than Chastain with a slightly better projection and a slightly better ceiling. And then I have another one where Chastain's significantly more rostered, but he's also got 3 times the points and a much better value. So I'm debating Chastain or Suarez. I feel like Suarez is a harder click, and I think should be the one we go with.
Yeah, because I think more people are going to be inclined to take Chastain. Yeah.
Yeah. We have 500. Do we have any interest in jumping from a Dinger to a Byron or a Truex? Do you have any interest from going from a Logano to a Hamlin?
I mean, you're losing 21 points, but you're also gaining.
And when you have Dinger and Barry starting back, I'm a little nervous to do 3 guys starting that far back. I know they're going to all move forward a little bit, but or Kyle Busch starting 19th.
We don't have any Busch exposure yet.
We have not been.
I don't know if he's going to be good, but
I like Busch.
Let's hope, because I
think he's fun in this lineup.
A pre-flop top 5 that is a terrible price now.
There's our horrendous DraftKings. I'm sure we'll crush DraftKings this week because we hate every single click. So just where the betting card sits right now, Ty Gibbs 20, loving that. Kyle Busch 34, it's fine. Alex Bowman 80, loving that.
That's a good number.
I don't think he's gonna win, but I'm happy to have it. Chastain 30, that's dumb. Chastain top Chevy, that's real dumb. Chastain top 10, that's fine.
That's actually a solid play, I think.
I really wish I went like 75 units on Gibbs top 10, but that's okay.
Right.
Brian has Gibbs, Busch, Bowman, and Chastain because we're going down together. Gibbs top 10. Busch over Suarez. How do you feel about that? Not great.
Really not great, yeah.
And then Kyle Busch top 5, as you mentioned.
I think
what's the worst bet? Kyle Busch top 5 at plus 650 or Ross Chastain top Chevy at 18-1? Yeah, I get a better number, but top Chevy against Larson and SVG, he's probably 700-1 right now to be top Chevy.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Okay, let's look at the lines. I'll pull up Caesars first. So, as Brian mentioned, plus 190 to bet SVG to win. Kyle Larson's 350, and then everybody else. So it's like SVG, and then Larson, and then the Muck, which is wild. So Gibbs, Reddick, Bell, McDowell. Like, I guess the question I have for you is, if we're betting, so obviously it's a great week to sit out if you haven't gotten overexposed to this plane, or even if you have, just parking it, because the rest of this card is pretty disgusting. Maybe there's a couple bets to be found. But in terms of pure outrights, do you have any interest in finding some dart throws, putting a few bucks on a handful of guys and seeing if you can find a winner? Or do you think it's truly going to be the cream of the crop dominates, SVG, Larson, maybe a Reddick or a Gibbs or a Bell sneak in there and make for an interesting finish? Or maybe it's a watch, see what happens, and then maybe you get involved live if you think someone's making moves and getting it to an interesting spot. But I guess, right now we saw practice, we saw qualifying, we know what the board looks like going into Sunday. Do you have any interest in firing some darts, or do you really think it's like the cream of the crop's going to win and it's a waste of time?
I mean, all things being equal and without us reaching Twilight Zone level chaos, I really don't see many drivers competing with like the top handful 4 or 5 guys between SVG, Larson, Gibbs, Reddick, and Bell. All the guys priced in the single digit range. It's going to be tough to beat them. The one guy that I do think has the gumption to do that would be a Michael McDowell, just because I talked about it before. Like, he's proven he really doesn't care, and he's willing to ruin his race along with everybody else's to get a good finishing result and compete for a win. So I think if you don't have any exposure to McDowell, I don't mind grabbing the 10-1 number, especially with where he's starting at, because he's starting near the front. If he can get track position, we've seen them make crazy calls before, taking 2 tires. Like, they're on their last leg in terms of trying to get a win before they completely shut down operations for him. Everybody else, you're literally gambling at that point, and there is no amount of research that is going to tell you that that's a good bet when you have Shane Van Gisbergen and Kyle Larson and Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell, who are all tremendous road course racers that have amazing speed that is pretty much nowhere near anybody else's on track, betting somebody else to win the race. So, I think if you, like me, I have outrights on a few people prior to practice, which are shitty ass numbers now, thanks to Shane Van Gisbergen again.
Yeah, I mean, like, we could get Truex at 45, we can get Suarez at 45, we can get Chastain at 65, Kyle Busch at 65.
I think it just shows you like how much better those guys are, which, I mean, it is the Cup Series. Look at the shit that happened last week in Nashville. We got freaking 5 overtimes, guys running out of gas. Like, is that going to happen again? I highly doubt it, but we've seen crazier stuff before. So, I mean, if you're going to ask if I would potentially think about throwing a dart, I don't mind throwing a dart on Chastain or Busch because they don't have wins.
Busch, Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace.
Chase Elliott, not so much. Like, okay. I don't know. I got to see something out of him there. The Bubba number, I don't hate that either. Like, you're getting a car that was one of the top 6, 7 fastest in practice and qualifying at 30-1. I mean, shit, he's 50 at Superbook. Like, that's wild.
Yeah. But
that just shows you how fast.
Yeah, I like the 50 a lot more than the 30. But it truly is gambling, not educated.
Yeah, like at that point, you're throwing caution to the wind, and that's like, oh, here's 10 cents. Let me see what I can make from this.
Yeah.
It's basically the way that the same thing, the way that I cashed my 2 Logano tickets last week. Like, those had no business cashing, and those were terrible prices after practice, and yet I still hit it. Like, I mean, more power to you if you can hit one of those wacky ass numbers, but there's no amount of research or race craft that is going to say that was the correct bet to make, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm adding a wacky ass outright to the card just because I like to be
Chastain's number 80.
no, well, that I mean, I already have Chastain at 30, and I think it's a terrible bet 30, so I'm not adding it at 80. But I am adding another Trackhouse driver, and I'm adding Daniel Suarez at 50.
Yeah, yeah. I
He's
don't hate
starting
that.
in the top 10. Is he going to win? Probably not. But I think his number versus what he's shown on road courses and where he's starting doesn't make sense. I think Chastain, if you have access to Superbook, $5 on Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain feels really fun. I don't think they're going to win, but given that they're 65 other places and even shorter elsewhere, I'm tempted to add. I'm tempted to add them where we have access. Logano at 100. Like if you don't mind losing $20 and you throw $5 on Logano, Chastain, KFB, and wherever, hope to get a well-timed caution that keeps your driver up front and gives them a real shot. Like Chris Buescher at 60 feels
Yeah,
compelling.
yeah. That's a great number on a driver who's really good at road courses.
I'm adding that one too.
Oh gosh, Kyle is talking himself into a much
yeah.
longer card than he needs to have.
Yeah, no, I'm adding a bunch of really bad bets, but I'm putting very little on it. So when they all lose inevitably. I'm also like I have the Gibbs at 20. I feel pretty good about that. If I'm picking somebody not named let's frame it this way. If you had to pick two drivers not named SVG or Larson to win, who's your like not like based on odds or anything, but like based on you think they can legitimately win the race, they have a good chance. There's two names that stick out for me, but who are the two for you that you would say beyond SVG and Larson, these two guys have the best chance to win on Sunday?
Well, as much as I like my Gibbs number at 20, I have to eliminate him from the conversation in terms of the best chance to win because I have yet to see him grab a
Right.
checkered flag. So it would have to be Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, that's probably the right answer. I wanted to say Gibbs and Reddick, but you're probably right.
Look, Christopher Bell, he qualified 7th. He didn't look great in practice, but we've seen that out of him before and him wind up with one of the fastest cars on track all day.
And
So
we've seen him dominate road courses. Like, should we be betting Christopher Bell at 8? Are we getting a discount given what his potential is?
I don't know if he's got enough to get to the front. Like track position is going to be crucial, and passing on the Chicago street course is almost impossible.
All right, let's frame it this way. Here's $100, Brian. Go step up to the window. You can bet Christopher Bell at 8, Ty Gibbs at 8, Tyler Reddick at 8. Who are you betting?
Well, let's remove my fanhood from Tyler Reddick. So obviously, I would choose Tyler Reddick personally, but I would probably split it and go like
No splits. One bet.
I'd probably go Bell. At that number, I'm not comfortable betting Ty Gibbs at such a short price when he has yet to win a race.
I feel like Tyler Reddick's the answer, and that's crazy.
Thank you. Like, but I didn't want to say it. Like,
say it with your chest.
Look, I'll just say this before we sign off here. I placed my largest outright bet, like the most units ever on an outright, on Tyler Reddick this week.
Oh, he's no chance of winning that.
Clearly,
No
it's not
chance.
hitting. But that's how confident I was in him showing up in practice and qualifying. And I don't think he did anything to prove me wrong. It's just that SVG and Kyle Larson were just a level ahead of everybody else. And so I'm excited to see what happens on Sunday.
I'm excited to see what Chris Wormy says tomorrow, and interested to see how much SVG exposure he has, how much Larson exposure he has, and if there's anybody else.
Well, he's probably not stupid and bet the Van Gisbergen 5-1 number that I poo-pooed early in the week.
Yeah, I saw Seth Woolcock. I don't know where he got this number, but he had SVG at 12 and then at 6.
He probably did a weird parlay. I saw a couple people where they parlayed
With like a golfer or something. Or
with
an
Xfinity, and so they got like 18-1.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you did the double dip on SVG, I do wonder how many times has somebody dominated Xfinity and dominated the Cup race. I don't think it's ever really happened. Maybe a Larson thing. I don't know.
I mean, if anybody's going to do it, I would not put it past Shane Van Gisbergen.
Well, we ended up going an hour, even though we were recording this late at night. But that's okay. We'll get it all posted and ups and all up. I'm gonna have to go clean up my DFS article. I gotta decide if Corey LaJoy is still the gas station sushi I want to put my faith into. Figure
Maybe you
out.
should leave it on there and say written, like put a little prefix or an asterisk and say written before official announcement of moves.
No, I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna say I don't care that he's starting even farther back. He's gonna move forward. He's gonna be awesome and still be the guy you need. No, I'm not, but it's funny. Brian Twining. This was a lot of good times. Make sure you guys check out the Substack article. It is completely free to subscribe to. It gets in your email inbox every race day. If you don't want to subscribe right away, definitely at least give it a look. See if it's something that makes sense for you. We're trying to put a lot of time and effort, and we're staying up, burning the midnight oil to clean it up, finish it up, get it ready where it needs to be posted. So make sure you're checking that out each and every week. If you have yet to hit subscribe and you're still watching, please do that. We're working on getting to, I don't know, 15, 2K. We'll see. We'll see where this gravy train goes, but we appreciate everybody who's hopped on board already and has been along for the ride. If there's stuff you guys want to see, as always, leave them in the comments. Let us know who you're betting this week, who is the most compelling driver on DraftKings for you. We're always down to have conversation in the comments. Appreciate everybody who hops in other conversations, provides insights, really fun community we're building over here on YouTube. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy Chicago. Don't go too crazy. Hopefully hit a couple bets and do some decently well on DraftKings, and we'll
Tyler Reddick.
We'll reconvene next week to recap all of the carnage and talk about SVG running away with the race. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.